Hi, welcome back to Sri Lanka Travel Stories. Today we have Al here, who is a traveler from Australia. He's on holiday in Sri Lanka. Let's see what he has to say about Sri Lanka and let's take a listen to his experience in Sri Lanka. Hi, Al, welcome to Sri Lanka Travel Stories and welcome to Sri Lanka. Why don't you give us an introduction about yourself and just explain our viewers what you have experienced in Sri Lanka and your total experience so far.
Great. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's a very big question to answer. I'm going to have to remember all the different parts to it. Look, my family has had some connections with Sri Lanka in the past. My brother worked here for a long time and my niece was born in Sri Lanka. So I suppose traveling to destinations where you have a connection with some kind of place is a reason to kind of go back there. I'd been to Sri Lanka for work in 2015 as well, to Colombo and to the south of the country. But on this particular trip, I wanted to come back to Sri Lanka and visit other parts of the country. So I think about my first trip in 2015 gave me a little bit of a taste of Sri Lanka, of the food, of the people, and of the culture, and I wanted a little bit more. And of course, when you go to a place for work, it is for work. So you have a different perspective. This has not been work related. This has been well planned. I've packed a lot into a week. I can tell you, if you like, what I have done during the week.
Yes, exactly. Yes. We'd like to hear.
Fantastic. Well, of course, I'm a big city guy, so I like Colombo. So I like walking around the streets a lot. So, of course, I've been walking a lot. I've been up the Lotus Tower. I went to book myself a train ticket at the famous Fort Street train station. I've on my iPhone, I photographed lots of colonial buildings because I like architecture. I've been to some Buddhist temples as well. And of course, I've been eating good Sri Lankan cuisine. Before this, I was in India for a week eating North Indian food. So of course, I like to compare different cuisines of different countries. And there's something distinctive about Sri Lankan food. I've been to Kandy, where I've been to the famous Buddhist Tooth Temple, and that is really a complex I'd really recommend in terms of seeing the Royal Tusker elephants, seeing the famous Buddhist tooth. The Buddhist World Museum is also in the same complex, and of course Kandy is a very pleasant, relaxed city surrounded by mountains. Very, very different from Colombo.
It is.
I've also been to Tambula to see the Buddhist cave carvings. Tambula, that's right. I apologize my pronunciation.
No problem, yes.
And I've been to Sigiriya. See, I'm a bad Australian, see. I've been to Sigiriya as well to climb to the top of the hilltop. And look, I think the amazing thing about Sigiriya for me was I just thought it was going to be the remains of the buildings on top of the mountain. In fact, the guide explained about the whole complex being more than 1,500 years old, the various kingdoms that used to rule in the central province of Sri Lanka. And it reminded me with all the waterways and the lakes down the bottom of Angkor Wat in Cambodia. It seemed to me, I haven't been to Angkor Wat, it's on my tourism destination, but it seemed to be a Sri Lankan version of Angkor Wat. I'm not saying one's better, but Sigiriya was remarkable.
It's a compliment.
It is very much a compliment because that is also a UNESCO heritage site.
It is,
We could also mention, of course, that the caves are also a World Heritage Site. I think, if I'm correct, Sri Lanka has 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I think it's around about 8.
I think it should be 8, yes.
So the country is very rich in history. So I guess I'm a cultural tourist in terms of food and people and understanding religion. That's what kind of drives me. I'm not here for the beach. I'm not here for the weather. I'm kind of here for people and culture.
People and culture, yeah. So, So out of the places you have traveled so far in Sri Lanka, what is your best experience? What is the place that you like the most?
Okay, I love this kind of question. It's like a question in a job interview. You know, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Everybody loves the strengths question, right? Look, I was talking to my host before, and that is definitely the Royal Tusker elephants in the Royal Palace up in Kandy.
Right.
Because I had the opportunity to interact with the elephants, to feed one elephant watermelons, and the other elephant I got to help bathe the other elephant in a pool of water. That was a remarkable experience.
Right. So I have never done that. Yes.
I know.
I would like
this
to,
is this is bad Sri Lankan, good Australian. It's like it's a fantastic thing to do. It's just a golden opportunity to interact with these magnificent creatures.
Yeah, it's a nice experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want my worst experience?
Yes, please. Yes.
Everybody likes the worst experience. Now I've got to think hard. Look, I guess it's probably being hassled a little bit on the street by merchants wanting you to take a tuk-tuk ride with them or else to go into their stores.
Mm-hmm.
And as a tourist, I like to be left alone and I like to silently walk. Mm-hmm. If I wanted a tuk-tuk, I would call a tuk-tuk, right? Mm-hmm. But I understand that people are touting for business. As a tourist, I do like to be fairly solitary and I generally know what I'm doing. I like to think. I like to be left alone. So this is not unique to Sri Lanka, though. This is typical of many developing countries where people are actively seeking business. So it's not a specific criticism of Sri Lanka. It's just part of traveling in countries like Sri Lanka.
Actually, that could happen to us as well. They try to do some business.
Yes.
They will also follow. They will also follow us, and they will also try to offer things like that.
Good to hear.
That happens. Yeah.
It's good to hear. Yeah, look, it's a minor criticism as well, but this is the same in India. This is the same in many countries.
Yeah. Sometimes actually they are trying to do something genuine. Most of the time, so they need some business, they need some hire, so they need to sell something. They try their hard. So that's how things are in certain areas.
Yes. Well, also, I understand at the moment it's kind of towards the end of the main tourism season as well, so there are perhaps less tourists about. So the hawkers and the shop owners and the tuk-tuk drivers are particularly keen to find business right at the moment. But that's been my personal gripe. But it's not a deal-breaking issue.
And off the camera, we had a chat, and then you said about some tourists, they like to go see places, while some tourists like to go and mix with the culture.
Yes.
Yeah. If you could explain something about that.
Yeah, look, I think it's a little insight I had talking to our channel host before, and that is some people are very much interested in places, and they have a list of almost like a list of boxes they want to tick off. They might it's on their kind of sometimes people use the word bucket list. It's on their bucket list of things they really want to do.
Yes.
And of course, I guess all tourists they don't want to go to a country and miss out on the key things. So you'd be crazy to come to Sri Lanka and not go to at least one or two of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, because these are places of great significance. So those are places. But for me as a tourist, I'm interested in people as in places. So the interactions you have with people, to me, are equally kind of important, because that's you can get insights into culture through buildings and temples, but you can get far greater insights through people interaction.
Exactly.
And it might just be with a tuk-tuk driver or an Uber driver, or it could be with a friend that you kind of meet on a train. To me, that's what makes tourism memorable, the kind of cultural interchanges you have with locals. And then you can truly say that you know something a bit more about Sri Lanka beyond temples and colonial buildings and the parliament or the Lotus Tower. And I think that's the bit that is memorable.
Yeah. Since you mentioned about these World Heritage Sites, so there are a couple of sites that are on the tentative list. And also Sri Lanka has so many places that must go to this list. I don't know why it is being delayed. And it's time to submit these to this World Heritage List, because there are so many places. If you check my channel, there are certain places in my channel as well. I hope to do videos on these places in the future.
Yes.
There are so many places that should go to World Heritage List.
Well, I understand from talking to our hosts that there are some previous old capitals of Sri Lanka which people simply don't know about, quite frankly, and are certainly worthwhile listing and go back an awfully long way. And the history of these is known to Sri Lankans, but it's certainly not known to foreigners at all.
So what do you think about the traffic here in cities?
Well, okay. Well, I guess you need to take a rain check in patience sometimes, but it's kind of crazy. But of course, just before this week I've been in Mumbai, so Mumbai is extra crazy. But if you're just coming straight to Colombo and you're taking a tuk-tuk or a tour up into the countryside to one of the UNESCO sites, you're going to find that all drivers have two two speeds. That is completely stopped in traffic or completely go like a racing car driver, trying to overtake everybody else on the road, despite a corner coming up, despite a tuk-tuk coming towards you. It's pedal to the metal, crazy driving. And I mean, I haven't struck any drivers that have not been good drivers, because to drive in Sri Lanka and survive, you have to be a very good driver.
Especially in Colombo. Even I don't like to drive in Colombo. Yes, I think things will improve in the future. We hope things will improve. That discipline has to be improved, definitely.
Yes. Well, I think the fact that Sri Lanka now has motorways going to between Colombo and the international airport, and in the center part of the island, there's I think about 45 kilometers of motorway. It's actually very calm traffic on the motorway. No bikes and no tuk-tuks, I understand, are allowed on the motorways. Whereabouts on country roads, you have a mix of traffic types, and everybody driving like they're in a hurry, and it's interesting, but it's kind of crazy.
I think some country roads are nice to drive, and also the highway is nice. You can see a lot of discipline there.
Yes. Well, of course, you see nothing from the highway apart from jungle. When you're going to little towns in Sri Lanka, my eyes are like cameras. And so I'm observing people's houses and their lives and chickens and things. It's like taking the train. I took the train from Colombo to Kandy, and I like the train because the train is high and you see people's backyards. And because the train tracks are often elevated, you get a different view than from the road.
It's very bouncy, isn't it?
And the trains, oh my goodness, this was the Intercity Express, Colombo to Kandy, and if you had false teeth, your teeth would be falling out. It was crazy, bouncy and noisy. I took it was second class carriage, and I had a great time because people were very kind of friendly, and but the train was very bouncy and noisy. But that was and the windows open, which was great. That was part of the experience. It was wonderful.
It's a scenic ride, isn't it?
It's a wonderful ride. Pulling out of Colombo, of course, the countryside is quite flat, but as it goes up into the mountains, really, it reminded me a little bit of Switzerland, except with jungle. You can look down into the valleys with little villages and little towns, and it's very lush and green. There are some waterfalls. I would really recommend people take the train to Kandy, and I'm sure there are other famous train journeys within Sri Lanka up to some of the tea estates. I think it's Adams Peak, I think, is a great place to go.
Adams Peak,
That's supposed to be wonderful. So if you like mountainous countryside, Sri Lanka is kind of the place for that, but also for great beaches as well. So it really offers an awful lot in a compact area.
So what do you think about Sri Lankan people, and are they friendly or?
Okay, well, God, I'm being interviewed by somebody who's from Sri Lanka, so what can I say? Look, once again, I've been in Mumbai most recently, and I live in quite a big city in Australia, so I'm used to people being keeping to themselves and not being particularly friendly. Certainly in Australia, I'm used to some road rage on the roads, and in Mumbai, I was well protected by staying with some Indian friends. Here, I'm kind of by myself, apart from with our host. So I've noticed that people are very hospitable and very friendly. There's a high level of politeness as well. So whether that comes from Sri Lankan culture or that also reflects Buddhism, I'm not too sure. But Sri Lanka is definitely, like Thailand promotes itself as the land of smiles, I would actually say that Sri Lanka also has a parallel with that as well. So friendly, very kind of relaxed. We were talking about the street merchants and the tuk-tuk drivers, but even they are polite and pretty friendly, quite
welcoming
frankly.
as well.
Very welcoming. People always want to know what country you're from as well. And I've had some very nice kind of small street conversations with people as well. And people on the train were really very pleasant.
Actually, one thing that some people get offended when they ask questions like, where are you from? How long are you going to stay here? Are you alone here? And they have certain set of questions like that, and some travelers might get offended by these questions. They're asking with a good intention. To say that they care for you, then they like to know. Just curious.
Yeah, curiosity. Well, I guess the question, are you alone here? That would freak me out a little bit, because I think, oh my goodness me, that means I have no other protection from us. So that question I would find a bit strange. But the country question, what are you doing here? What country are you from? These are perfectly innocent
questions, and they need some sort of a topic to engage.
Of course. I had a great conversation with with a taxi driver yesterday that was transferring me from Colombo, and I engaged him in conversation, and we ended up talking about how many people in our families, how many kids he had. I told him how many kids I had. He asked me a bit about life in Australia. I learned some things about the government here in Sri Lanka. We had in a 40, 50-minute ride, we had a wonderful interaction. And I think he learned more about Australia, and I learned even more about Sri Lanka just in our 40-minute taxi ride. And it made the drive nicer for him, and it made the ride nicer for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to learn about the culture.
Absolutely.
In any country.
Conversations with taxi drivers. Taxi drivers know a lot.
They know a lot because they've been taking different people there with them.
Yes. So and look, I think for taxi drivers as well, it must be pretty terrible sometimes being out in the roads and sitting in Colombo's kind of traffic. So when they are giving a ride to a tourist that wants to interact with them, as opposed to being completely silent, that also makes their day go by as well, because it can be very stressful for them. But for the tourist who's interested in people and culture, it is gold to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah. Right. So my last question is, for a traveler who is visiting Sri Lanka for the first time, what do you recommend? What do you have to say?
Okay, well, look, I'm kind of a bit of a world traveler, so I generally do a lot of preparation before I go. To me, there is two types of tourism. There's fast tourism, where you see a lot of things, a lot of places, a lot of people in a rapid period of time, and then you move on. And there's kind of slow experiential tourism. So I have to paraphrase my response by saying I'm a fast tourist. So I tend to be very organized before I came. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do in Sri Lanka before I left Australia. I worked out my time in Colombo. I worked out I was going to combine the Buddhist cave paintings with Sigiriya. See, I'm getting better. With Sigiriya. I knew that was one day. My host here suggested I come to this particular city for a little bit of a beach break as well. So it was all organized before. Because I have limited time and I like to pack a lot in. So to answer the question, I would say planning is everything. Research the country before you go. Use TripAdvisor. Look at the comments on TripAdvisor. To me, I like to pre-book the hotels. I don't like uncertainty. So I like to know where I'm staying. I need to have a hotel that's very central because I like to walk. So I think you need to know what you want to do, and then the internet is there to be used. So you'll maximize your time if you've done a lot of planning beforehand. And that allows you to then actually relax when you're there, not have to do your research within the country. That would be my answer, I suppose. Okay.
And also, before we start this conversation, you mentioned that you wanted to go to Pinnavela Elephant Orphanage.
Yes.
And then again, you said there were some mixed reviews, right? So, and you decided not to go there because of that.
Yes. So look, I think look at reviews. So I chose a particular tour company to go to Sigiriya and to the Dambulla caves because they had better reviews than other companies. In fact, there were many companies doing that particular day trip out of Colombo, and some had very mixed reviews in the sense that the tour guide didn't quite do what was advertised on TripAdvisor. The tour was a lot shorter or a lot longer, and they were very dissatisfied. So I picked one particular tour company which seemed to be better than the others. In fact, it was a very satisfactory kind of experience. So that all worked out quite well. I guess with hotels, looking at hotel reviews becomes important as well. But I am a big planner, and I realize that some people just want to fly into a country and then find a hotel and then have different days and say to their partner, what would you like to do today? And it becomes more spontaneous. And of course, I'm not that kind of tourist. I like to pack a lot in.
You had to plan everything before.
I'm a huge planner. Different styles of tourism. So just as I said, there's fast tourism, slow tourism. So as a fast tourist, I have some friends of mine that say, but I look at your holiday to India and Sri Lanka. There was no relaxation in it. I see you every day. I see your pictures on social media, and it's different places, and I can hardly keep up. You must be exhausted. But that reflects the fact that is not their style of tourism. They might come to Sri Lanka for a beach holiday and stay in one particular location because they're from cold northern Europe. So sitting by a beach, eating good Sri Lankan food, and just enjoying the whole company might be their style.
Right.
Okay.
So what do you think about Sri Lankan food?
Well, Sri Lankan food, I'm sort of in the process of still studying Sri Lankan food because when we were here for work, we mostly ate in a hotel. So the hotel was a big five-star brand in Colombo. So it was a buffet-style food. So it was only in the last few days that I really started eating Sri Lankan food. And of course, last week I was eating good North Indian food, which I just love North Indian food. What would I say? Well, Sri Lankan food is plenty different from many of the different cuisines in India, particularly from North India. It seems to be very subtle, with more subtle flavors and less hot, less spicy, but less hot spicy. I would say it's more subtle. The dish I had last night had lots of vegetables with it. It was a prawn kind of curry and very flavoursome, but more vegetables than prawns. But delicate, subtle flavours and actually very healthy as well. Very healthy eating. And of course, because Sri Lanka is an island, it's a place for good seafood as well, particularly where we are at the moment in a beach city. Look at the menus and you'll see there's a lot of seafood.
Seafood,
and, curried seafood with rice. 100% good.
Right. Okay, good. Okay. Would you like to come back to Sri Lanka again?
Yes. Well, look, I have a couple of reasons to come back, and that is kind of friends in Sri Lanka. And I would have to do more kind of research. I would like to go back to Kandy and see my elephant friends and visit the Buddhist tooth because it was closed when I was there. I would like to perhaps explore some national parks in Sri Lanka as well. I think if it was made easy for me, going to Adams Peak might be quite interesting. Less interested in beachside vacations. I know many Europeans want to come for beachside vacations, but for Australians, we have excellent beaches. So I don't think I'd come all the way to Sri Lanka for the beaches because we can do that at home. But obviously for leopards, for elephants, and for other animal species, Sri Lanka has some distinctive things. So I think national parks, views, and my colleague here mentioned kind of Sri Lankan village life. Perhaps going to visit some small villages where they're not used to Westerners would be very kind of interesting. Sri Lanka offers great diversity, but on a future trip, I would definitely do research. I might be guided by a host of this channel for some good advice.
More than willing to help you.
For that. But look, Sri Lanka is very set up for tourists, I would say. Tourism is a big part of the economy. So there's a huge variety of things to do here.
Right. Okay. So this is not a very planned conversation or anything. This is not a proper interview or anything. I just wanted to hear your honest opinion and experience about Sri Lanka. Okay. So that's the main purpose of this discussion.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And anyway, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your honest opinion and your experience about Sri Lanka. Right. We hope you will come back again soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being interviewed.
Yes. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks, folks.